you may start.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I am Giulia Tassi, Project Manager of ITSLIQUID Group and Communication Manager of LUCA CURCI Architects. Today, I have the honor to introduce this session named PostCOVID Cities, from Contemporary Cities to Virtual Spaces, and the pleasure to introduce the architect Giulia Tassi to this very current topic. During the last 20 years, the architect with his company developed several projects from urban planning to interior design, most of them for the Middle East area, but also in France, in Italy, and in other countries. The studio analyzes the relationship between man and the environment that is, of course, influenced by the architecture quality that surrounds us. So welcome, Mr. Curci. Thank you for being here. Could you please tell us more about this topic?
Yes, thank you, Giulia. And first of all, I want to thank the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Knowledge Foundation and all his wonderful team and United Nations Development Program to invite me in the KnowTalks. It's an honor for me to be part of this experience. Reimagining life in a post-pandemic world, this is my starting point. The COVID-19 pandemic is a wake-up call. Our world will never be the same again, and neither will be our cities. But the crisis may be an opportunity to build better and more sustainable societies and cities. This pandemic and the restriction it has imposed give us time to reflect and think about long-term solutions while dealing with a major short-term problem. As we know, cities are centers of innovation and wealth creation, but also hotspot for air and noise pollution. And in this moment, they are centers and hotspot of COVID-19. Cities are complex systems made of a lot of different things, and they attract people because of their jobs, social ecosystem, events, and unlimited opportunities they offer. But at the same time, they are characterized by close and personal contact and marked inequalities, both aspects that have become more apparent because of COVID-19. In cities, the noticeable visible impact of the pandemic included the absence of tourists, shop closures, and everybody of us is watching these transformations that we are living in our everyday life. Preventive measures like mask use and social distance may have us to rethink how we use public space, which mode of transport to use, and where we work. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, cities have started to push car aside and increase the space allocated to active transportation and bike lanes. In one study, around 90% of car drivers said they did not miss their daily commute, and all during lockdowns, or only certain aspect of it, while around 90% of cyclists reported missing commuting or some aspect of it. So my question is, it's time to rethink our urban models. We are living in some urban models that are ancient, or they are not customized for the current situation, and for sure they are not customized for the future scenarios. In the 20th century, cities appear to be designed for cars. That's why we have so many problems related to pollution and car traffic. But in the 21st century, should our aim to be created cities for people? Should we work to create cities that are smart, sustainable, livable, and healthy cities that use nature-based solutions, have a circular economy, and favor active mobility and green spaces?
Well, speaking about rethinking our urban models, how the increasing number of population and high density can and will affect contemporary and future cities?
While we are talking now, the current world population is around 7.8 billion. With a certainty of 90%, the size of global population will stand between 8.4 and 8.7 billion in 2030, and between 9 and 10.2 billion in 2050. Can you imagine? We will become at least 30–40% more in less than 100 years. The natural side effect of this inevitable population increase is that cities will become crowded. They are still now crowded. Living spaces will become smaller, and resources, if not managed effectively, will create a heavy economic gap. Urban sprawl, the rapid expansion of the geographic borders of cities and towns, is often characterized by low-density residential housing, single-use zone, and increased reliance of private automobile for transportation. I want to remember that urban sprawl started from the monocentric urban model that was the starting point of most of the contemporary cities. Most of our cities, for example, in Europe, starting from the historical center, they started to become bigger and to extend their borders, and creating these areas around the center, and lot of ex-urban, low-density neighborhood. This created problems. We became the number of population increased and started to grow up, and problems started. So where is our point now today? Our starting point to solve these issues is to think about new urban systems and something that could change these urban models, and start to think about not anymore on a monocentric model, city model, but maybe starting to think about a polycentric city model, made by a community network made by different groups and different communities shared in the city center, that will divide the number of citizens and will create an horizontal society. To giving you an idea, today in the USA, more than 70% of city inhabitants live in suburbs. Urban sprawl has been correlated with increased energy use, pollution, and traffic congestion, and naturally a decline in community social life. In addition, by increasing the physical and environmental footprints of metropolitan areas, the phenomenon leads to destruction of wildlife habitat and to the fragmentation of the remaining natural areas. These ex-urban low-density neighborhoods consume more energy per capita than their high-density counterparts close to the city's core. And energy for eating, cooking, cooling, lighting, and transportation is largely produced by burning fossil fuels, a process that contributes to air pollution and global warming. To reach their jobs in the city center or other employment areas, many suburban workers must commute by automobile. The most important thing of this suburbanization is poverty. That is one of the most important demographic trends of last 15 years. Poverty rates across the suburban landscape have increased by 50% since 1990. And in the USA today, more people, poor people, live in the suburbs than in American big cities or rural areas.
Well, it is clear that the cities have changed during the years, adapting themselves to the new ways of living and proposing new urban models. From which tradition of city evolution do we come from, and where do the new cities will lead us?
Yes, thank you, Giulia, for this question, because it's a really important topic. Understanding from where we come only to give us the opportunity to know more the present and going in the right direction for the future. It is true that cities have changed since their beginning. Cities have grown over the last century as millions of people have migrated from rural areas to metropolitan areas in the quest of better safety, jobs, education, and lifestyles. The cities were born to reduce transport costs, to improve the exchange of ideas, sharing of natural resources, and large local markets. But during the last 2 centuries, there has been a change, and the proportion of the world population, as we said now, completely changed. The world population living in the cities has rapidly grown, so that the urbanization has become a complex reality. It needs to be improved through urban planning and through urban design, rules and regulation to make life less stressful and more sustainable. The cities of the future have to be resilient. They need to have the ability to absorb, recover, and prepare the future shocks like the one we are facing those days. A first step to reach this goal is to adapt cities to our way of living. Cities should adapt to our way of living, because in this moment we are adapting to the city models and to the city structures. That's not so the best way of living inside a city. Not the contrary, a place where everyone will have a role, where it's easy to get goods, services, and healthcare, where a sustainable development and well-being is the new normal.
Okay, so after this analysis, in your opinion, what should post-COVID cities look like?
Well, there are different ways to address the urban planning work. There are different, and in this moment, different ways of thinking. A lot of urban planners from all over the world are working together, creating teamworks, and are trying to solve this node. Because creating new urban model in this moment, in this period of our history, it's not only related to society, it's not only related to communities, but it's related to, well-being, health problems, mobility, because the mobility in the last 2 centuries has completely changed. So there are many different, several models that we could talk about. And between these models, there are some of them that, in my opinion, mixing and using together could solve and could find better solutions. For example, there is a model that is called the compact city. Compact cities are characterized by higher residential density, shorter travel distances, and great diversity. They have lower CO2 emissions than sprawling cities and are healthier because of more diverse land use, shorter trips, and healthier mobility opportunity. After, there are super blocks. Some cities in the world are planning to create over super blocks to reduce motorized traffic within some street of a super block to provide more space for people, active travel, and green spaces. These super blocks will reduce air pollution, noise levels, and heat islands effect, will create green spaces and physical activity. It is estimated that they could prevent several hundreds of premature deaths every year in the cities. Similar principles are applied in low traffic neighborhoods. One of the models that I'm studying more and I'm following for my future project is the 15-minute city. That someone called 20-minute city. Okay, what is the 15-minute city? The 15-minute cities is based on the main concept that everything you could need is around you in 800 meters. So in 15 minutes, you can reach everything from shopping, from healthcare, from services, everything you need immediately. Someone else call it 20-minute city because they approximately talk about 10 minutes to reach a place and 10 minutes to go back to your home. For example, Paris is introducing the model of the 15-minute city, a place where work, school, entertainment, and other activities can all be reached within a 15 minutes walk of the home. The 15-minute city will require a very radical rethink of our city, because we have to change and work on the suburban area to the central areas to create these new polycentric communities, because the 15-minute city works with the polycentric city model. The 15-minute city will reduce inequalities because the model involves mixing different population groups rather than maintaining the model of residential zoning by socioeconomic status currently used. It will also reduce the need for long distance travel and reduce CO2 emissions, air pollution, and noise level. The 15-minute city neighborhood concept is all about living locally, giving people the ability to meet most of their daily needs within a 15-minute walk from home, with access to safe cycling and local transport options. Another important model can be the car-free city. Hamburg, for example, plans to be car-free by 2034, partly to address the climate crisis. Car-free city reduces unnecessary private motorized traffic and provides easy access to active and public transportation. They reduce air pollution and noise levels, increase physical activity, and create spaces for green areas. One successful example is Vauban in Freiburg, Germany, a neighborhood without cars and with sustainable housing. There are some common principles that connect all these urban models. What these urban models have in common is that they invert the transport planning pyramid, so that rather than prioritizing cars, planners prioritize public transportation, walking, and cycling. Expanding cycle networks and by extension increasing cycling rates in one way to reduce motorized traffic and CO2 emissions and increase active mobility, this will be the right way to solve many problems that are affecting our contemporary cities. The resulting increase in physical activity and improves people's health. The other aspect all these concepts share to some extent is access to green spaces. We need to add more green to our cities, which is important for many reasons, including mental health. And we are living this COVID-19 moment with this problem, cognitive functioning and life expectancy. There is only a need to create new green space areas, such as parks, but also to introduce more vegetation in our streets, in our homes. We need to dig up asphalt and plant more trees, which will reduce heat island effect and contribute to CO2 reduction and better health.
And in the cities of the future, which role will digital play? Will it be used as a means and not as an end?
The COVID-19 pandemic has raised new questions, forcing us to rethink the relationship between urban design and public spaces, maintaining the social hub and the city represents. Designing the metropolis of the future means not only thinking about mobility and broadband services, but also building inclusion policies that enable everyone to access urban and civic functions. So we should no longer consider the digitalization of health, sanitation, transport, supply chains, and labor practice in isolation, but integrated in our new daily life. The cities of the future will combine physical facilities with the virtual environment, starting from the payment systems, touchless technology, home working, and flexible work hours in offices. This is our goal, to refocus the future on health, tech, and open spaces, to use technology to make them respond better and faster to all the changing social and economic needs of those who live and work in our cities.
During the Knowledge Summit 2019, before the COVID-19 problem, you talked about your project called Vertical Cities, a very peculiar urban system where towers are connected to the moons, as you call them. And this is the metropolis of the future. How do you think the system will be adapted to our current way of living?
Vertical City was one of my last project proposals. It starts from the idea that vertical could be the future. And as we said, and as I said in my previous answer, in different city, new urban models and city models, going vertical, creating super blocks and working in a polycentric city model could be the solution. So Vertical City, like the other project that I created some months ago, the Link, are a response to these needs, and they are a mix of different city models based on polycentric philosophy and based on super blocks needs. Vertical City, zero energy city building. First of all, it's important to say it's a self-sufficient building. It's completely sustainable, and it's a project proposal for a vertical city building of 100,000 people settled in the water. The urban system is planned to incorporate smart cities technologies and to divide the city into functional areas. As I said, a number of renewable energy resources is used. Energy storage solution, water desalination, and food production and farming integrated inside the city follow a zero waste policy. So it's a city for an healthier lifestyle without suburbs and less poverty oriented. The project combines sustainability with population density, and it aims to build a zero energy city building, starting from the analysis that the contemporary skyscrapers, conceived as a compact element, smoothed and alienated from the surrounding space. This project has reinterpreted it in an open structure equipped with green areas on each level, adding green, natural light and ventilation, 100% green transport system. Everything we talked until now is inserted inside these projects. It's a new way of living, naturally, because thinking vertical is completely different from what we are used every day to do, but it's more sustainable with more interconnected communities program, deleting suburbs and reducing poverty. The second project I presented few months ago is the Link, a conscious living system for 200,000 people. The Link has been created thinking, first of all, to our reconnection with nature. So the balance between humans and our planet. And with the help of nature and introducing more green and more trees inside the project, nature could help to reduce because the CO2, because the project aimed to rise above the challenge of population density by successfully combining vertical expansion with economic innovation. It's a self-sustainable city forest, if we can define it in this way, that will absorb CO2, produce oxygen for cleaner air, and increase urban biodiversity. With interconnected communities programs, it's really new thing, and I'm watching that, I'm following several projects around the world that are using this new concept. The Link will use a urban operating system with an AI, an artificial intelligence. The vertical city will be able to manage the global temperature of the city, levels of CO2 and humidity, and will control the global lighting system, will storage extra energy production by solar panels and other renewable energy resources. It's the first smart city conscious-oriented. I like to use this concept because in my idea, cities have their own identity. And so this city with conscious-oriented will prevent urban sprawl, produce storage energy, improve air quality, and increase urban biodiversity.
And do you think that changing the urban system will be enough to move forward to a better future? How the human being, in your opinion, will react to the new future we are about to face?
The crisis confirmed that planning is not just about the physical aspect or drawings or projects of a city, but also the engagement of its people. It's something that is completely integrated. The past century have declared the foundation of the city's identities. We have to know this because it's really the most important concept, and we have to find a way to get in contact with this identity. The city's identity has become bigger than the humankind wants. It is in this invisible balance between these two identities that the future urban system approach will play their role. It is necessary that measures and urban planners have to think about the development of a city for human beings and human needs, because until today, we have created cities in which we live like guests, not cities customized for our necessities. The population density is changing. Sea levels are rising. The CO2 emissions are going crazy and are rising like the pollution. We need to consider a livable urban system adapted to the increasing population numbers that will double in less than 100 years, in which we have to remain individuals and not numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Curci, for sharing with us your vision. Now I think it's the time for some questions. Rita asks, has the transportation system changed in terms of public transport due to COVID, encouraging the acquisition of individual cars?
Yes, the problem is that a lot of cars companies are pushing to sell the electric car, to new systems. Yes, we have to work in the direction of green areas, more cycling lines, and a walkable city as much as possible. As I told in one of my answers, thinking about a polycentric city models and within the concept of 15-minute city, if we create a polycentric community network, we will have the opportunity to move by walk and reduce a lot the use of cars and the traffic issues.
In a changing dynamic economic sector worldwide, how do you see the future of the developing countries in sustaining development?
This is a complex question, because it's not related only to the urban decisions and urban projects and drawings. It's more related to the government's laws and permissions connected to the urban planners and all the architects that will work together to get a solution. And the other important thing is that, thinking about a more sustainable way of living in the many cities around the world will be necessary, studying each city model, starting from the contemporary situation and the actual situation, and driving a new solution, starting from what we are finding in that city. So the answer will be multiple concepts, and the urban city models I was talking now can be applied, but everything will be customized on each solution, on each city. So every time we have to rethink and readapt the city model and the urban model to the specific situation.
Does the problem lay in the shortage of natural resources worldwide, or in the mismanagement and exploitation of these resources by decision makers?
Yes. I'm not the right person to judge what is happening with the government, but yes, I'm sure that we have to think that we have a lot of natural opportunities and to reconnect with our planet Earth. And I'm sure that with a sustainable architecture and a sustainable urban city models, we can have an healthier lifestyle, reducing a lot of issues, reducing poverty, as I said, reducing pollution, CO2 emissions. So we don't need a lot of technology to be smarter, to be faster. We need technology applied to a urban system that will reconnect us with nature. So yes, these decision makers will drive new opportunities to involve new companies, new tech companies, but the revolution can start from us, because as I told before, each of us, every inhabitant has its own identity. And if we work together, creating smart communities inside the cities, we will start to solve the problem from our side. And if we start from our side, everything will be a consequence.
How are your practice towards sustainable cities applicable to the Middle East, knowing the climate conditions and issues raised as a result?
Yes, as many times I was invited, and I was in the Middle East area studying the climate that there is in that areas. My company works with sustainable elements that enables to have architecture that can solve many problems, starting from the inside the homes temperatures, and so fighting the gap between outside and inside temperatures, and rising up until the problem of reaching the desalination of water, and yes, using the solar panel system to catch the solar energy with storage solutions, and many other ways we are using with my company are able to solve many problems with the Middle East climate and with the Middle East high temperatures. The problem is that the Middle East has some troubles with the temperature and with water, as we know, but at the same time, they represent an opportunity, because everything has been created in the last 20 years in the Middle East area is an example of sustainability and sustainable cities. And many city models that I talked today, for example, the polycentric city model, and the realization, the construction of community centers is ready and is on under our eyes. For example, if we visit Dubai or other city in the Middle East. So yes, my company is working so much to create new opportunities for private and governments. In the Middle East, we created a lot of project proposals to drive the right sustainable architectures and giving the humankind the opportunity to live an healthier lifestyle.
Asma Ali is asking how we can make this project practical. Will we rebuild our existing cities, or we will build new sustainable cities? What is your plan?
Yes, as I said, there are different city models, and each city model can be applied to the current situation. So if we start to study a city, we have to understand what are the needs, the people needs, the citizen needs, and going under that direction, we will use the right urban model. We have not to construct new cities. Constructing new cities is only when you have to build in a new area because you need a lot of housing for new citizens or for other questions. No, the most important and the right direction is studying the situation, the nowadays situation of that city, and improving or modifying some city systems to enable a better way of living. So if a city is a monocentric city with a super center and a lot of neighborhoods and suburbs, we will work with the polycentric model. With the polycentric model, we will create a community network. And so in each side of the city, we will create a system of small communities that will adopt the 15 minutes model, urban city models, as I said. And with this new model, citizens will have everything they need around them, and they could be they will have the opportunity to move inside the city only for other extra needs or for visiting the city center, but creating this decentralization and this polycentric model will be the solution for most of the contemporary big metropolises and cities. For other small or medium cities, we will use, for example, the concept of super blocks. So merging some existing towers and some existing blocks, closing the streets behind them and in the middle of them to the cars and opening them, for example, to the pedestrians. So creating more walkable areas, creating more green areas. Each solution will be customized for each city model.
Are large countries with a small population possibly experiencing a demographic change?
Yes, it depends on which country we are talking about, and depends on the people moving, because as we said, cities has changed during last centuries, and we have studied that many rural areas moved, cities and more in rural areas moved to the city centers, and last months from the city centers, we are having a big movement and exodus to the rural areas again. So depending on which country we are analyzing and depending on which is the situation in that area, we could expect to create maybe a urban system that will work on that number, thinking about an increasing of a growing up of the population, so that in that case, in the countries with a low density population, we could create a new model that could be applied. So when you think about a city is extending because they need new areas for new citizens, creating the polycentric city model will help to prevent the urban sprawl and the birth of suburbs.
Are all societies with different cultures and with different resources able to implement this concept of the 15-minute cities?
Absolutely, yes. The 15-minute cities and the polycentric city model can be applied in every country, in every culture, and in every religion, because, if you think about, for example, on health, or if you think about schools, if you think about religion, if you imagine a community and a network of communities in which every community has one church or one mosque, you know, one school, one small hospital, and everything we need for our everyday life, from shopping, small centers to local bars. We will help the local economy, first of all, and not only using technology to do the shopping online. We will help the local economy. Helping the local economy, we will improve the health of the community. And using this small hub, that is this small community connected with the others, we will create this network that all together will have the identity of the one city.
Now, Mr. Curci, a question about vertical cities. What about provision of food? Does the recommended model help in supplying spaces for providing sufficient food for inhabitants of the cities?
Yes, vertical city, as I said, is made of different levels, and on each level they have not only green but small farms, and for this reason, vertical city is a self-sustainable and self-sufficient for food production. It's normal that for everything we need outside our simple food, we have to import. But vertical city, it's not an island somewhere else, even far from the world. Vertical city is an example only of a vertical envelope and vertical of a vertical city model, but everything from the outside can enter inside the city with 100% green transportation. So with elevators and a normal transport system that you could find in a skyscraper, but we will have the opportunity to have a lot of green areas and a self-made farm that will create food for the small communities on each level, and at the same time will give the opportunity to the citizens to import from the outside everything else we need from other kind of food. Yes, we need from other areas of the world. So it's a normal city. It's not don't think about a vertical city like an island somewhere else, or a system that is far from us. It's a city. It's not made on two dimensions. It's not horizontal. It's vertical. It's another way of living.
Another question about the 15 minutes cities. Is there a possibility to integrate manufacturing industries areas to the residential and commercial areas to minimize the trips? So
the 15-minute city has been created to change the traditional monocentric city model. Because in the monocentric city model, you know, we have a city center that is usually an historical center, for example, in Europe or in other areas, is the main place in which you can find monuments or some museums, and all around kilometers of suburbs. With the 15-minute city, we can share population and inhabitants inside the city and create a lot of services for everyday life. About the working areas and the economic areas, we can create between the communities some shared areas. That's the idea. It's normal that the industrial area should be in a zone of the city like the commercial one, but that will be the common areas for the entire city. The 15 minutes city works on an everyday life. So if you need in your everyday life something that you can reach in few minutes from your home, you will have. And if you want to give to go in the city center, if you want to visit another area of the city, if you want to interact with another community, or if you have to go to the work in an industrial area, there will be different other centers around and in the middle of this network of communities. So when you think about the 15-minute city, it's not made of zoning. It's a shared zoning concept. It's the same with the communities, will be the same with the industrial areas and with the commercial areas. So you have to split the ideas of communities for everyday life and for the living areas, and you have to do the same with the industrial and the commercial ones.
The last question is that during the lockdowns, the nature got really relaxed, especially considering the air conditions. How can we achieve this good effect of the COVID-19?
As I said, and I'm super sure about this, we have to use technology serving our needs. And if we use technology for a smarter way of living, a smarter city, including every kind of systems for catching the solar power and for reducing the CO2 emissions, everything, all the suggestions I talked about today, and all the urban systems we were analyzing during this talk are necessary, because if we will drive our future in the right direction, we will respect everything nature is doing during last months. So if we will reduce the traffic and the pollution and the CO2 emissions, and we will live in a green way, improving cities with green areas and open spaces, and we will use technology only to reach our goals, we will respect what nature is doing during last month, and we will live in a better way and healthier life.
The very last question is, people are used to spacious houses. Do you put psychological dimensions in consideration of density and in this crucial change?
Absolutely, absolutely. The gap in this moment is that with the monocentric traditional city model, we had super small apartments and cities, super small apartments and residences in the city centers, and going out of the center and far from the center, the dimension become bigger and bigger. Okay. The idea of the new models I was talking today is that we can create the right space for the right number of people, for the families, for individuals, for professionals. Everybody will have the right space, and the right space will be not only the space in which you live. The right space will be connected to the right space of the green areas, of the walkable lines, and your everyday life will be connected to the right space around you. We don't need only the right space inside our homes and our apartments. We need the right space around us and a common space for the community life. So yes, the new models are working on this direction, and I hope that applying them as soon as possible, we will reach the goal of a better sustainable life.
Well, I think this will be all. So thank you, Mr. Curci, and thank you to the Knowledge Foundation for having us. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.
Yes, bye -bye. I want thank you, Giulia, for your moderation, and thank you again to the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Knowledge Foundation and the United Nations Development Programme for inviting me. And I hope to meet you soon in person and to talk about the new issues soon. Thank you very much for everything. Have a nice day.